Hi everybody, Steve Griffiths here, developer of the MTPredictor software program. In today's MTPredictor video, I'd like to look at the MTP RT add-ons for NinjaTrader 7, which is we've got here, and I'd like to follow up on some of the analysis we were looking at in our live training webinar last Friday, particularly this DP cell here. This was an advanced setup, so I'll get onto that in a minute, because what I want to do first, I'll just clear that off, is I want to have a look at, for standard traders, how you'd have done on the YM. Now remember, standard traders go with our STF colour, which is our large degree trend indicator down here. So you'd have actually been avoiding that one. However, this TS3 cell setup later in the day was on a black STF, so you'll be able to take this one. So if I right mouse click, place the analysis on, you can see our correct position sizing there takes care of the number of contracts to trade to keep less than a sample, well, a 2% risk on a sample $20,000 account. Market went down into the first target, excuse me, where a nice 4.6 profit would have been available. So a nice trade there. But I just want to go into a bit more advanced analysis, because this is where the true power of the MTPredictor software really comes into being, and today is a very good example of this. So for advanced traders or more experienced traders, we go out to the higher time frame chart, in this case the 15-minute chart. And if I actually zoom out, what I did with the YM in particular, because this was the best setup, there was also resistance on the other markets, but it wasn't quite as clear as the YM. I went back to this previous high pivot here. This was the major high pivot. In fact, actually, if I go out to the 60-minute chart, that might be a little bit easier to see. There you can see, I'll just zoom in a bit now to make these bars a bit bigger. So you can see there's our last major high pivot on the 60-minute chart. Right mouse click, place our decision point on. Remember, these decision points are on the chart in advance. I cannot stress this enough, that these are leading indicators. This is what's so good about them. So before yesterday even opened, you knew that there was a resistance area up there at that particular level. Let's come down now to the 3-minute chart and see what effect that would have had. Well, as I talked about in our live training webinar, I said because we were at higher time frame resistance, in other words, in this case the 60-minute chart, there was also the same resistance on the 15-minute chart if you'd zoomed out a bit further as well. But because we're at higher time frame resistance, you can take, or the more experienced MTPredictor users can take trade setups on the shorter time frame chart, in this example the 3-minute, at this particular resistance area, even though it's against our STF colour. So I actually looked at this, placed the analysis on. I said if the market gets down to this first target here, this would also have been a nice profit, which would be a 2.1 hour profit. I then went on to a little bit more detail. I looked at the volume coming up into the break into this high here, and I noticed that it had a MTPredictor VSA bar, which is this one here. So this tells us that the volume going up to the new highs above this prior pivot, if it reverses then at our DP level, the next bar, it actually indicates that this volume here was actually selling volume, not buying volume, selling by professionals, and that indicated that the market probably had further to go down. And as you can see, that's exactly what happened. Also, I looked at the Elliott wave pattern going up into this high here, and I also suggested that because this was a 5-wave sequence, the initial target would be the DP of the prior wave 4, which coincides with that first target. But I also suggested, and this is what we also know from our MTPredictor teaching, that if this level is breached, which it was here, you can see if I drag this across, this level was breached here, the market then tends to go back to the DP from the start of the sequence. It should come back to the start of the 5-wave sequence, which is here, right mouse click, place the DP level on, and then that would be your next target. And as you can see later in the day, the market did indeed reach this. So if I grab and drag the profit target down to this level, you can see that for the more experienced users, rather than taking 2-hour profit at this first level, you had a potential 9-hour profit. Now that's a absolutely amazing trade. In other words, a profit of 9 times greater than the initial risk. So that's the next target on that. Also, if I go out to the 15-minute chart, once this high was actually put in place, we look at the last swing into the high or low. So this was the last swing into the high. Remember, we had that 60-minute resistance area giving the, we actually nailed the high of the day brilliantly. Once the market started to decline, you go back to this last pivot, you place the DP on from there, and that gives you another area. Again, this is in advance, so this is before the market even gets there. In this case it's an area of support because the market's dropping into it, and as you can see that actually nailed the low of the day where we actually had a TS4 buy set up on the 15-minute chart. So how had that looked on the 3-minute chart? Well, here we go. As you can see, as the market was declining down here and reaching this first sort of DP target from the prior 5-wave sequence, you also had this 15-minute support down here a bit lower. Now you knew that this was your higher time frame support level. So as you came down to this, you may well have said, well actually I want to try and run this a little bit further. And if you had, remember this DP level was on the chart in advance, so it's not guessing that this was after the fact. This was here before the market got in there. You could have had a short trade down into this low where the profit could have been increased to 12R. Looking back on this, that means that you would have actually been taking a short trade off pretty much the high of the day. Remember that would have been the resistance area would have been there in advance. That was your sell target or your sell setup. The market came down here. Your higher time frame DP 15-minute support level nailed the low of the day. So a trade from pretty much the high of the day to pretty much the low of the day. I mean, absolutely fantastic. I mean, you couldn't do better than that. Well, actually you could, because the more experienced users, rather than just capturing 12R profit there, would have noticed that we actually had a TS3 sell set up here. So this would have been an opportunity for you to pyramid or add additional short positions. Remember, if we pyramid or add, we always bring our stop to break even on our initial position. Market came down to here, to the first target, but would you have wanted to take the first target? No, you'd have wanted to come down to our higher time frame support area there, and as you can see that would have also added an additional 8.5R. So 12R plus 8.5R, the more experienced users here could have had almost 20R profit. Very, very nice day indeed, particularly the way we had a resistance area that nailed the high of the day, and also then a support zone again on the higher time frame that nailed the low of the day. So an absolutely fantastic day on the YM. Was this the only market that had a good day? Let's have a quick look at the ES. On the ES, there's our TS3 sell setup. If I place the analysis on, that would have been a nice 4.2R profit at the first target. But let's go out to the higher time frame chart. Remember what I did on the YM? There's the move into the last high. Here's our low, so you'd have placed the DP off there. That would have been your large degree support zone. Again, remember that's on the chart in advance. So before the ES even got down there, it would have been a support zone. As you can see, that nailed the low of the day beautifully as well. Just like the YM, more experienced users could have said, well actually I want to go down into the lower support zone, in other words the higher time frame support zone at the lower level, and that could have increased your profit from 4.2R to 7.9 or almost 8R. If you trade 5-minute charts, exactly the same kind of thing. There was a TS2 sell on your 5-minute chart, place your analysis on, come down into your higher time frame support zone, and again a very nice 5R profit was available. So all in all, a very, very good day for MTPredictor yesterday, and it's interesting because that came on the back of some harder days earlier last week, and actually my last video I did on Friday talked about a very hard day in the ES, and this is just a great example of the cyclical nature of trading. In other words, we had some hard days that have now been followed by some very, very good days. Just go back to the YM on the 3-minute chart, and the two trades that were absolutely outstanding on the YM were our TS3 sell down into the 15-minute DP support, and well, for me the one that I really, really liked was this DP sell that caught the high of the day, again taking the target past the second target there, which we would have had off our 5-wave swing up into the high, down into the 15-minute support for a potential 12R. Absolutely spectacular trading. So a very, very good day for MTPredictor yesterday, particularly on the YM.